Okay, before you scroll, let's chat. So, Louis Tomlinson's music is like all over the place. Like it's kind of blowing up, right? Like the Palaces, Lemonade, Sleepwalking, and Diary of the CEO appearance. And then now he's like in Vegas, and I really want to go, but then I just realized that I have Thanksgiving. Anyway, so radio stations are playing Lemonade, Palaces getting playlisted. I think there were like 5 million Spotify downloads of Lemonade, like in the first 2 weeks or so. And then the Spotify numbers keep climbing. And then, of course, there's the TikTok edits going viral, and fans are asking some real questions they've asked before. But then, in light of the Louis kind of seeming to, the sun, like the sun is finally shining on Louis, it has brought back a question that many have asked before. Is like, why is he getting the traction he always deserved, and why didn't this happen sooner? Because if you look at the phenomenal writing he did in One Direction, if you look at some of the initial solo stuff, I mean, it was really good, right? Um, so yeah, why is it only happening like on the verge of the third album? Why didn't it happen at least on the second album, right? Because a lot of those early Louis solo stuff was, I mean, they're classics. Like they've got such a cult following, and then you've got the Louis Army, so it doesn't make sense. So I thought it'd be interesting to deep dive into like what's been the recurring fandom discourse theories, long running questions about why was he kind of like not given the recognition he deserved when he wrote he had the most writing credits in One Direction, right, among the band members. So yeah, so let's sort of feel. I mean, this has been talked about for years. Like it just feels like Louis' solo career has always felt a bit different. And I have always wondered, like, there's people who have not heard of Louis Tomlinson, but they've heard of One Direction, because when they think of One Direction, they think mainly, at least in the United States, they think of Zayn or Harry then Zayn, right? So for years, there's been this quiet, persistent ache in the fandom, especially in the Louis army, because Louis Tomlinson, the guy with the most writing credits, like I keep saying, in One Direction, the guy who, excuse me, shaped their sound more than anyone, who kind of helped, who kept the plot going to get free from Psycho and Modest, somehow became the least pushed artist in the mainstream. Um, Not because he lacked talent, not because he lacked fan loyalty, and not because his music did not have impact, but industry recognition seemed always to be lagging and sparse. And for so long, it made no sense. That's why you have the Louis army like petitioning that he gets put in festivals and all this stuff, because people were getting fed up with him not getting the recognition he absolutely deserved. But now in late 2025, something seems to have shifted, and it's bringing up that conversation again. Is like, what's changed? So, in the last few weeks, this has been discussed in the fandom. Like a Louis fan had posted about how Lemonade, someone in one of the Larry Silenson Facebook groups, a fan had posted that Lemonade was playing on a major local radio station where they lived. Then there's been multiple fans who've screenshot Louis charting on Spotify in places that he didn't really chart before. Apparently TikTok, I don't have TikTok, but I believe it. TikTok seems to be pushing Palace's edits a bit more aggressively, or just you just notice it more compared to any previous Louis song in years. And then on Reddit, and the different Reddits like Larry Sounds and Louis Tomlinson, all One Direction Reddit, all the Reddits, right? There seems to be a pervasive sentiment about, wow, this seems to be the most industry support Louis ever gotten, especially since solo. And different Facebook groups are discussing, like, why is Louis suddenly everywhere? Because this is not subtle. This is pretty loud. And now he's in Vegas, and I want to jump on a plane right now. Okay. Um, and this is not new. The confusion about the discrepancy between Louis' talent and output, and like fan base, and what has been to this point, since One Direction went on hiatus, sort of a disproportionate lack of traction in terms of radio plays and mainstream and all this. It has been a source of what the hell's going on, right? Because for years, fans have wondered, why did Walls barely get any radio play? Like, why did Faith in the Future almost get no mainstream push? Why were songs like Kill My Mind and Bigger Than Me never playlisted like they absolutely deserved? Why was Louis, of all people, treated like an underdog when he literally helped write a lot of One Direction's biggest hits? So fans are not imagining this. There is like material fact evidence. And this disconnect between Louis' talent, his output, his fan loyalty, the growing fan loyalty, and the um the um the what's called a very vocal fan group, and his visibility has always been massive. Like, it's like, this does not make sense. Okay. So there's a couple fandom theories. One is that the industry never backed him. So one of the longest running theories, again, this is purely speculative. There's no accusation here, but I kind of personally believe this. It's just pure opinion. I don't know anything. Is that if the industry likes you, they will push you. If they don't like you, they won't push you, because you think of a lot of reality stars that, how are you getting a record contract? You suck, right? Kim Kardashian comes to mind. So this is why I believe this theory. Again, is that Louis was simply never received real industry backing. And then these are some long-standing fan examples that they cite. Other One Direction members getting like stronger early radio support, other solo debuts receiving massive promotional budgets. It's not uncommon for like a lot of Louis fans to say, "What is his team doing? Why?" It's like the fans are doing a better job. Well, and this was over years, so it's not a one-off. Louis doing grassroots promotion while others got mainstream coverage. And the difference in playlisting between even Harry and Niall versus Louis. So fans have said things like Louis had to build everything from scratch. No one handed him anything, but he had earned his stripes, and that's, I think, where I personally get really annoyed, is because this boy fucking proved himself. God damn it! And how dare you shaft him? How dare you? And a lot of Louis, that's why they're so fiercely, basically playing free PR for the guy, because they don't like this. And he was treated. Another one that the fans have said is that he was treated like the least marketable member when he was the heart of the band. So was Liam Payne. Him and Liam, that duo. If it wasn't for those two, One Direction might still be enslaved to Psycho, in my opinion. Not making accusations, pure opinion. Um, so these theories are not about blame. It's about the lack of structural support that the fans feel they witnessed, and there's evidence that they could back up that this is what they're witnessing is not emotional perception, but there's like a paper trail that can that can back it up. Okay. Another major fandom theory, again, speculation only, because I have not gone through paperwork. Um, to really prove this, you need to go through data, and I just don't have time. But I actually agree with it too, from a purely opinion. So the other one is that Louis' early solo career was deeply impacted by his time with Psycho. So fans have said that Psycho didn't support him. He was sidelined. He was too outspoken, too honest. There was some blacklisting. He pushed back, and they didn't like it. Um, Louis himself publicly stated that he did not feel supported by the label. And then that's when you see the fandom, because the Larry fandom, like, they're a bunch of little detectives. I swear, I am convinced that some of the fandom are probably working in some kind of investigative capacity, because they're just too good. So the connected dots were, there was weak promotion, there was small radio push, there was a chaotic release schedules, very poor rollout coordination, and Louis having to do much on his own. And then the grassroots efforts of the fans that wanted to support him. So fans have long talked about this belief that either Psycho was disinterested or was uninterested, not really the most competent, not necessarily malicious, but definitely not prioritizing him. I think, yeah, I think that if they had the infrastructure and the industry connections, like, there's no reason they couldn't have promoted Louis. And because Louis joined the industry young, fans believe he may have inherited legacy constraints that he didn't choose. All right. So a third theory is, and this one is this sort of follows along a lot of the belief of NDAs that might still be existing, some clauses in contracts that have been kept confidential, but might still be dictating their careers long after they've since left. Was that, and this is kind of like probably the hottest theory that resurfaces a lot, especially I think especially this week I've sort of gotten that sense, but that could just be me. And so this theory is maybe Louis had a long-term contractual limitation that finally expired around 2024, 2025, and suddenly right now he's free. So again, this is all speculative. There's there's not a lot of receipts that definitively say yes, there was some kind of like contractual thing, but it is, I've been seeing this one. And I think the fans are pointing out a pattern. Like if there's anything that Larry's can be counted on, it's their pattern recognition. Now, pattern recognition is one thing, the dissecting and the synthesizing and the analysis of what it means and and like validation testing, that can vary. But some common comments that seem to be echoed is, you don't go from years of no radio play to Lemonade suddenly being everywhere. Well, yeah, but thank God it is now. It feels like a contract finally ended. One possible explanation: something shifted behind the scenes. You can feel it. Actually, I agree. Um, so fans have been pointing to things like there's been no mainstream award nomination for years. There's been minimal playlist support. There's been selective press coverage, and then there's a sudden surge in visibility before album 3. It's the timing that's been fueling this theory, and that's why I'm on board with this one, even though I don't have receipts. I don't claim to. All right, so then another theory is that a more positive theory is one that is preferable because it's positive in some ways, is that Louis simply outgrew the structures that limited him. For example, he built his own fan base, his own touring power, his own brand, his own identity, and his own era, and now the industry has no choice but to acknowledge him. So then other things that are buzzing in the fandom chatter is that Louis did not need the machine, he built his own machine. That's why I've been calling him Mr. Andrew Carnegie of music. I yeah, my early videos talked about how the guy's a genius and he thinks long term, he plays a long game. Um, the industry, after a while, numbers talk, right? It's all about revenue. So the industry finally they're catching up to these really super loyal fans. It's to the point, it's like when you hit critical mass, there's a theory of critical mass. Once you hit critical mass, can't stop it. It's like it's everywhere. And there is I think there's some competing explanations and they're all actually relevant, but I would say that there definitely has been some critical mass that has happened. And why that happened, there's probably different explanations, but fundamentally, if you hit critical mass, you're everywhere, right? And this particular theory sees Louis' rise as earned, not granted. Well, if it's Louis, it can't help but not be earned. He earns every stripe, damn it. Okay, another theory is that which has been, they've been buzzing in the fandom, is that this has been backed by years of discourse. Like, if you really piece through Tumblr and Reddit, you'll see that this is not a new um, narrative. So Louis' work has always been radio ready. It just was not supportive. Yes, yes. Walls had, okay, so these are, fans are really good archivists, I swear. Walls had at least 4 radio ready singles. Faith in the Future was critically praised but underpromoted. Louis is a lyricist. I call him Mr. Lyrical Sniper. He is a performer and a storyteller with absolute depth. And his concerts were selling out even when the radio stations ignored him. I mean, Away from Home Festival, Louis Festival, has been growing in attendance and stuff. So then the fandom has said Louis was always excellent. The industry just didn't want to admit it. He's finally getting the push he deserved years ago. Um, it it wasn't him; it was the system around him that prevented him from getting the recognition sooner. I agree with that. So this, and in this sense of this particular theory, not a conspiracy, because hey, fans are just pointing out observable patterns. Okay, but why does this moment feel different? Well, here's a bit of an emotional part, but nothing wrong with that. Fans feel like they're watching Louis finally get the recognition that he deserved 10 years ago, damn it. It feels like an emotionally corrective moment because for the first time his music is charting organically. Well, because he's good. You guys didn't realize that there was a diamond in plain sight, and his name is Louis Tomlinson. Radio stations are spinning him. His visuals are trending. Well, because they're really good. And I think whoever he hired to do some of the marketing collaterals, pretty good. TikTok is pushing him. Well, the Louis army, never underestimate them. His singles are getting traction because he's good. General public is discovering him. I really am so glad that that Diary of a CEO thing aired. Bottom line, it people always, like I said, people he was the diamond in plain sight of One Direction. Okay. And so fans have been kind of chattering, and they've been saying things like Louis finally stepping into the era he should have had from day one. This is his revenge era, but make it soft and deserved. And he's rising, and it's about time. So whether or not anything changed behind the scenes, well, something has changed in the energy. Maybe it's astrological. It's this thing about timing, right? Like they say that there's astrology and then there's the personal year, and like there's I mean, I'm sure someone's going to come up with an explanation that incorporates every single birth chart imaginable. But sometimes timing is timing, but also I think it is critical mass. That would be more my explanation, but I could be wrong. But something's changed and fans feel it. So basically, here's the what so. We may never know exactly why Louis' early solo career was not the firepower that it's looking like now, right? Like he's on the edge of like superstardom. I think I think Louis, because he plays a long game, he's one of those stars that don't burn out. They don't fade away. They just once they hit their cruise speed, they stay there, like Quincy Jones. Um, yeah, but really, it was the first couple albums. You see this really talented guy, and just like not being recognized for no reason because even far less talented people were getting more recognition, and that stood out. So, but we, until evidence comes to pass, it's authenticated, we're never going to really know if it's contract labels or just timing, industry biases, or it was just bad luck. I don't think it was bad luck. No, I think it was someone named Salmon Cowbell. But I'm just speculating, not making accusations. All that we kind of know for now is this: is that Louis Tomlinson is finally getting the movement, the support, and the recognition he deserved years ago, and the fandom is rightfully emotional about it. So if you've ever loved Louis, if you've always believed deserved better, or if you're just happy to see him winning again and finally getting the recognition in the you know in the radio station plays and then in the mainstream uh, buzz, well, he deserves it. This is Louis's moment. And honestly, like I say it again, it's about bloody damn time.